Good morning, everyone. We'll give another minute just to make sure everybody gets on that's coming on. Hey, I think we'll go ahead and start with roll call. Darius, if you'd like to go through the roll.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Dwayne McFall, Central Front Range.
I'm present, sir. Good morning.
Morning. Cody Davis, Grand Valley. Dana Brosig, Grand Valley.
Present.
Steve O'Dorisio, Denver. Greg Mills, DRCOG.
Here.
Vince Rostowski, Gunnison Valley.
Here.
Brian Pettit, Intermountain.
Present.
Johnny Olson, North Front Range. Christian Stevens, North Front Range. Brian Cervenic, Northwest.
Here.
Wendy Pettit, Pueblo area.
Present.
Vern Hierstick, San Luis Valley.
Here.
Brian Blasi, South Central. Ron Cook, Southeast.
Here.
Colton Black, Southern U. Heather Alvarez, Southwest. Sarah Dotson Hill, Southwest.
Present. Good morning.
John Becker, Upper Front Range. Kevin Ross, Upper Front Range.
Here.
Manuel Hart, Ute Mountain Ute. Bernadette Cuthair, Ute Mountain Ute. Brendan Adams, Ute Mountain Ute.
Good morning.
Right. John Leosados, Pikes Peak.
Here, and Commissioner Williams is under the weather, so I think I'm it for us today, except for maybe Danella's on.
And finally, Chair Beatty, Eastern.
Yep, I'm here.
Right. Is there anybody I missed?
Darius, I'm here from North Front Range.
We do have a quorum, Mr. Chair.
I'm also Brian Blasi, South Central Council of Governments is here, South Central TPR.
Okay. All righty, thank you. I don't believe we have any public comments, so we'll move on to approval of the January 2025 meeting minutes. You should have all received those in an email. Is there a motion to approve the minutes?
Move to approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, been moved and seconded. Any additions or corrections to the minutes? Seeing none. Is there anyone opposed to approving the minutes? Say aye. Seeing none, minutes stand approved. Okay, up next is our CDOT update on current events. Herman.
Good morning, everybody. Just a couple of items I want to share with you today. The first is that CDOT attended the WTS luncheon last week, and we received awards for the Colorado Employer of the Year. Heather Paddock was chosen as the WTS Colorado Person of the Year, and we got awards for the Centera Loveland Mobility Hub and for the work on the US 50 Blue Mesa emergency repairs for those bridges. So exciting that we got 4 out of, I think, 10 awards that WTS gave this year. So we're excited about that. Also, not so excited that John Lorme's last day as our Division of Maintenance and Operations Director was about 2-3 weeks ago, but we've hired Sean Smith to replace John. Sean has been a deputy in Region 1 for, gosh, he's been at CDOT, I think, about 5 years. Spent 23 years in the Marine Corps, and he's going to be a great addition. So I think we'll flow right into Sean, and he's going to do a great job. And he'll get on the invite to this, and you'll probably be able to see him and get to know him a little bit on these meetings. And then our February commission meeting, a couple of items worth noting. We'll talk about the FY26 budget as we get closer to the final adoption of that. We'll have both a budget amendment and a budget supplement. Some of them dealing with an emergency repair on a bridge down in Region 5 that we hope to get some federal reimbursement for eventually. It's over that $750,000 threshold that might allow us to get that reimbursement. We'll do a Floyd Hill workshop as well. And then we're going to hear a briefing from our folks at DMO, Division of Maintenance and Operations, to talk about traffic incident management and the safety patrol we have. And part of it is because I don't think we've ever briefed the commission on what the safety patrol is and does. But we have a sponsorship program for that safety patrol. And it looks like CTIO is going to be our sponsor. So it's kind of a double advertisement for them that works really well. So the commission will adopt that also. So we wanted to tell them what the safety patrol was before we asked them to approve CTIO as being our branded safety patrol supplier, I guess. We also have an audit review committee meeting, and we'll have a recognition. So you all probably heard the news a few weeks ago, closing in on a month ago, that we had, I think, 6 of our CDOT plows block a lane, block the roadway for law enforcement to stop a high-speed chase. So I think that's the second time something like that has happened in the last few months. So we're going to recognize them for helping out law enforcement. So that's about it. Not a bad commission agenda this month. Happy to answer any questions you might have, though.
Any questions for Herman on upcoming commission or items? All right, not seeing any. Up next is my report from commission report. The last meeting in January, the top budget items that were discussed was looking at the 12.8 million decrease in fuel tax revenue that's projected. And then the 47.6 million federal obligation decrease that they're doing to try to even out the federal obligations and those things as they progress. And then the other one with budget items was the Protect grant match of 5.4 million that the commission approved to put toward avalanche mitigation upgrades in the mountains. Total for that would be 20 million or a little over 20 million if they would get the grant. Otherwise, they'll just use that money probably to go toward starting some of those upgrades. They had a presentation on the fuel impacts enterprise. And there's up to 15 million annually to be allocated to a limited number of counties where there's the fuel impacts for transportation and fuel distribution. And they're looking at those. Other one was CDOT safety camera program. I've started to hear ads about that CDOT's looking, or news releases on that they're going to start doing speed cameras in construction zones. They've allocated 2 to 5 million to get that program started. They will have signage and things to warn people that there is speed cameras ahead. Just primarily goal is to reduce the accidents and improves worker safety and people's safety going through work zones. So they're looking to roll out in 1 or 2 sites possibly this year and then expand that as time goes on. So I think that's a good safety program, since we don't have the staffing for law enforcement and that to be out there. And it also makes it safer if they do stop people, or instead of trying to stop people in construction zones where it actually increases risk of accidents. Hopefully it'll get people to just slow down, realizing they may get tickets in the mail and things. So bridge and tunnel presented on 10-year plan financing and projects. And then there was a presentation on public-private initiative to run a transmission line along I-76 in the state right-of-way. So they've been looking at that and how to address trying to do that sort of thing. That corridor does have extra wide right-of-way, so it looks like it may be a corridor that could handle that sort of a project. Herman mentioned John LeMay already leaving. And then in the meeting, CTI presented about the express lane enforcement and that seems to be doing its job in reducing the number of people crossing that double line. And then they also talked about the transit and rail funding that's going to reduce the Werner Park train fares by 45%. That's going, trying to get increased ridership there. Hopefully we can keep the funding and have the people using it actually pay for it too, since it's largely recreational people using that corridor. It would be good to have them help pay a little more over time, but it's good to get that program going to try to reduce traffic. And then Herman mentioned about the WTS awards that was presented at that. I did also listen in on the Transit and Rail Advisory Committee meeting 2 weeks or last week, whatever it was. They're working on a national price agreement for buses, trying to find a better, faster, cheaper way to get buses for agencies. So they're looking at this national price agreement, hopefully to try to lower costs a little bit for agencies and speed up the process of getting buses. There is also the transit connectivity study that's going on. They should be coming to all the TPRs and presenting on that. And I just really encourage TPR representatives to engage with that and give meaningful input on how we design the best transit services throughout the state, so we actually get the connections and the riderships, that we're not just designing routes or things that maybe seem logical but may not actually get ridership. We really need to be focusing on actually getting people on these services if we're going to implement them. So I encourage you to strongly engage with that study right now. And then they presented on the Front Range passenger rail and the mountain rail, progress on those. And then there was a little bit of talk about the Clean Transit Senate Bill 24-230, oil and gas fees, and the funding that's coming available for that. So if you're interested in that, look at the Transit and Rail Advisory Committee minutes, and they can get the information on that. Otherwise, I think everything else, if I missed it, is in the minutes that should have been sent out with the commission meeting. So any questions for me on the last commission meeting? Okay. Seeing none, PPR rep reports. We'll start off with Central Front Range.
Yeah, good morning, Dwayne McFall, Fremont County Commissioner here. We had our last TPR meeting January 13th. We had elections. I got reelected to chair. Leo Evans, the Canyon City Public Works Director, was elected vice chair, because we did lose Dick Eldner because he was term limited. We went over our meeting number 3 for the RTP. Had good conversations about that. In April, we'll have our 25 top projects moving forward, and working on a way to do roll call kind of like we do here, so that we're more accurate into who's there and who we need to get involved in the TPR. That's about it. Thank you.
Thank you. Grand Valley.
Hi, good morning. So we did have a board meeting last month, and at that board meeting, we extended our 2045 regional transportation plan as we were delayed a little bit with the greenhouse gas analysis. We were able to do the greenhouse gas analysis, and we're able to reach compliance without a mitigation action plan. So we're finishing that up and hoping to take that to the TC in March. We also adopted our performance measures 1 and 2, or for performance measure targets, adopting the state's targets. And then this month, we also kicked off our safety task force, which was built from our Mesa County Safety Action Plan, kind of a continuation of that plan and bringing together the people that helped work on that plan. So that was really great to meet with law enforcement again and talk about some of the newer data that was available, and also had school representation, hospitals, and local government. So continuing that effort to improve safety in Mesa County. I think that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Greater Denver, Dr. Cog.
Good morning. Hold on. Pull up my notes here. So at our January meeting, the board received a briefing on Dr. Cog's work on regional crash data. The efforts have been, the effort has been exploring opportunities to improve the timeliness and accuracy of regional crash data to better inform planning decisions and actions to reduce crashes. Staff and regional and state partners will continue to address the collection of crash report data, workflows, and data sharing. And also to note, the board received an update about its plans for this year's Winter Bike to Work Day, which is happening next Friday on Valentine's Day, February 14th. That's my report.
Thank you. Gunnison Valley, Vince.
Well, we've been working on a lot of different things. One of the things is in the MMOF, and we have a meeting next Thursday, a week from today, in which projects are going to be presented, and we have a committee put together to review those. And I think right now, as we got 4 projects that have been submitted. And with that same day in the afternoon, we're going to go over our long-range plan. And I think we're having plan number 3, and we're going to be going over all those things. And we've allocated a little extra time because the last time we had the planning meeting, we went over. And all of the counties were supposed to put together their plan for projects over the long-range plan. And then we'll be discussing those with both Region 5 and Region 3, because just to remind you that the Gunnison Valley Transportation Planning Region is shared by 2 regions. That's Region 3 and Region 5. With that, I think we're excited about getting going on this planning, and we'll have that next Thursday. Thanks.
Up next, Intermountain, Brian.
Yes, thank you, Gary. Good morning, everyone. We had our last TPR meeting on January 17th. We had an election. I was elected chair again, Bentley Henderson as vice chair for the Intermountain region. We did solidify our 2050 long-range plan, so we have that in place, and that's been submitted to CDOT. We took a formal vote on it. And we had some MMOF funding left from the applications that we received. So we extended the deadline somewhat in order to allow other folks to apply for the remaining funds. But that was the meeting in January, and we're moving forward. My understanding is that the bill that was in committee to possibly add TPRs to from 15 to 16 TPRs died in committee. That was the understanding that I have now, information from CDOT. So I'd like to have more information on that as we move through the meeting today.
Okay, North Front Range.
Hi, everyone.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm Kristen Stevens. I know you're used to seeing Johnny. He was unavailable today, so I'm subbing in. We had our MPO meeting on January 9th. We approved the FY 2024 tip delay review as well as an off-cycle 2024 tip amendment, adding a portion of US 287, the median safety project that's within NFR MPO's boundaries. At the same meeting, we heard presentations from project sponsors for the MMOF call for projects, and the approval of those projects is expected at tonight's meeting. We're very pleased to welcome Cecil Gutierrez as our new Transportation Commissioner. We have been without one for a minute, and so it's great to have Cecil on board for that position. And then last week, we held a joint work session to update the region's 10-year list of priority projects. At the meeting, we discussed priority corridors, ranked roadway, transit, and non-motorized projects. So by the end of the meeting, we had established additional data needs, and we're laying out our next steps to continue prioritizing our Tier 1 projects in the region. And that's all for us. Thank you.
Thank you. Northwest, Brian.
Hey, everybody. All right, so we had our Northwest TPR meeting on January 16th. A few things happened in that one. First, we approved the bylaw change to reflect our voting formula that includes transit agencies from the previous meeting. So now we're whole on that. The other thing that we did, and I might suggest other TPRs do this, we made the chairperson and vice chair positions 2-year terms. I felt it was kind of silly to have a quarter of every meeting have an election. You're a quarter of your meetings per year have an election. So we are now on 2-year terms here at Northwest TPR. The other thing that we looked at was the 2050 long range plan and prioritization of projects. So I had all the 5 counties do their best to get together and adjust the list from 5 years ago. So that will be still in the process of being updated and prioritized, but I think we have all the projects that we need at this point. We did meet, some of us here in Grand County met with members of CDOT to talk about Berthoud Pass and the maintenance on it. We just don't feel that our side of Berthoud Pass is getting the attention that it needs. I personally think that they're just trying to cover too much roadway with not enough snowplows. Our new county commissioner, Ed Ragnar, texted me this morning saying he saw 2 snowplows on the Clear Creek side of the pass and 0 on our side of the pass when he went over this morning. So I think it's still something that needs to be looked at deeper. Fun stuff. I took my family on the ski train, did the reverse ski train, had a weekend in Denver a couple weeks ago. We did the Museum of Nature and Science, went to a University of Denver hockey game, and trucked it back up on Sunday morning, and it was awesome. So I strongly suggest any of you guys take that train and try it out and see this mountain corridor. And then lastly, Town of Fraser has our Fire and Ice Festival on Saturday we're going to burn all the Christmas trees from Christmas from this entire valley. So it's a big bonfire, a lot of fun. Thanks.
Okay, Pikes Peak, John.
So from the roadside, want to thank Shane and his team in Region 2 for the Airport and Powers project. It's progressing very nicely. And in addition to the team, also a big shout out or thank you to the CDOT communications team. I've gotten a couple of emails on the road closure of Powers that's coming up to set the girders for the bridge. So they're doing a great job getting the word out so people aren't surprised with those closures. On the planning side, our long-range transportation plan is out for public comment, and that includes our specialized human services plan, as well as our long-range transit plan. So that does it for us. Thank you.
Thank you. Pueblo area, Wendy.
I'm going to let Eva Cosleon give you the update. She's the MPO director. Thanks, Wendy. So we had our meeting last week, and Wendy is our STAC chair, and our vice chair is Councilor Dennis Flores, and of course myself. And we had a couple of big resolutions that were passed. Actually, we appointed all of our TAC members that since we updated and actually created our bylaws. We've also added the second SS4A project. It's a supplemental planning and demonstration project. We also added a $14 million project for the Union Avenue Bridge. That's the demolition and reconstruction of Union Bridge, and also a zero fare transit grants for Youth Ride Free. And I actually presented to our board on the performance measure target 1, safety, and I suggested to the board, and if we could actually create our own safety targets instead of going with CDOT safety targets. My reason being was I felt like I wanted to tell a story about what's happening in our community, and so I presented data from the last 10 years of just the different trends that are happening in our community as far as serious injuries, fatalities, non-motorized serious injuries, and fatalities, and just showed how it has progressively increased. And I recommended a 15% reduction, just as CDOT does, but I wanted to create our own targets with the hope that it kind of tells the story of what's happening in our community and give our elected officials an idea of what's happening, and also the ability to have more teeth in the work that we're doing and be some more supportive in grant applications for HSIP, Safe Routes to School, MMOF. So I'm going back to the board this month to find out whether they want to adopt our own or adopt CDOT. And I think that is it. Actually, my call for projects for our 2050 long range transportation plan is out, and hopefully we'll get a contract here within the next month or so. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. San Luis Valley, Vern.
Yeah, good morning, everybody. We had a meeting in January, and that kind of served as our MMOF transit special meeting, and we had elections on top of that, and we opened up the application time for MMOF projects, and that's about it. Thank you.
Thank you. South Central, Brian.
Good morning. Good morning. We had a work session on January 23rd, where we oriented new new members. We also worked on the project list for the 2050 plan, and we reviewed bylaw changes moving forward. We also discovered that there was 2 entities within our TPR that we don't have signed IGAs for, so I've been working on getting those signed so they could be members before our next meeting on February 20th. At that meeting, we'll approve the project list for the 2050 plan, approve the bylaw changes, and we'll also have officer elections. So thank you.
Southeast, Ron.
We had our TPR meeting was held on January 29th, and our elections were held as well. Stephanie Gonzalez is the TPR chair, and I will be the STAC rep. We had a meeting number 3 for our long-range planning meeting. We reviewed our TPR priorities, but we will be having another meeting to drill down our priorities on February 26th in preparation for our April 23rd meeting. We attended the Region 2 TPR meeting yesterday, and that's all I have. Thank you.
Okay. Southern Ute, did anybody join? Don't see anybody. Southwest, Sarah.
Yeah, good morning, Gary.
Morning.
We haven't had a TPR meeting since STAC last met, but we have made some progress. We submitted our MMOF applications to CDOT, and we're going to be presenting our projects to the TPR next week. And then also we formed a subcommittee that met this week to review the proposed additions to the statewide plan update. And we look forward to hearing those recommendations at next week's meeting. And actually, our Regional Transit Council also had a work session to identify transit priorities. So been busy, but that's about all I've got.
Thank you. Upper Front Range, Kevin.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. We did not have a meeting. We have our upcoming meeting here coming up on March 6th, I believe. What we have been working on is our MMOF applications, getting those drawn, I guess, determining who we're going to win with on that. We've also been working through our 10-year plan and getting those projects lined up. So a lot of work. I know Commissioner Stevens is on here from Larimer County, and we've had a partnership, obviously, with our Fort Morgan County commissioners and good dialogue, and looking forward to getting that stuff all nailed down in March, and wanted to welcome our new transportation commissioner as well. So thank you for the opportunity to present.
Thank you. Ute Mountain, Brendan.
Yes, good morning. The Ute Mountain Ute Tribe, we're looking at a very busy year coming up. We do have several road projects, and we're going to be putting together an RFP for about 3 projects. We have like 3 roads that we really need to have reconstructed as far as pavement and asphalt. And we also want to remodel a 23-mile road from gravel to asphalt. So we're putting together our package right now for the RFPs, and we're also looking for any kind of funding. Yes, we do rely on the Bureau of Indian Affairs for quite a bit of our funding. With the new government in place, we're a little bit concerned that that funding will come through. And we're also looking at a long-range transportation plan and a safety plan for the tribe here. So we're looking at a pretty busy year this year. Thank you.
Thank you. Make sure I didn't miss anybody. I think I got everybody. For Eastern, we have not had a meeting. We just have opened up our MMOF applications. So hopefully people are getting those filled out for MMOF. Anything else from the TPRs? If not, we'll move on to our federal partners, Federal Highways.
Good morning, everyone. Bill Hodds here with Federal Highway Administration. Just a couple things. We do have a new US DOT Secretary, Sean Duffy. Secretary was sworn in last week. Last Friday, we also received some obligation limitation. I know that's good news for CDOT. We're working on seeing what happens with the continuing resolution. That's through kind of mid-March. So hopefully we'll have some resolution on that. And we're moving forward to continue to pay reimbursement requests. We can authorize and obligate funds on formula funded projects. And also to be clear, we can pay reimbursement requests for discretionary grants that have executed grant agreements. Everything else at this point is on hold, and we're kind of waiting for further guidance. That's all I have.
Any questions for Bill? Okay. Anybody on from Federal Transit Administration?
Yep. Hi there. Emma Belmont with Federal Transit Administration. I have one announcement. We do have a new staffer at FTA Region 8, Ed Caviello, he's on the line, aren't you, Ed? Do you want to say hi real quick? Oh, bummer. I see him, but maybe he's having trouble. But anyway, he's going to be our planning lead for Region 8 and will likely be looped into these meetings. So you'll get to know Ed a little bit. Outside of that, I don't have anything new beyond what Bill said about the same for FTA. We are paying, you're able to do disbursements on any active grants. We do encourage you to continue applying for grants through our TRAMS system, and we're working through those reviews as best as we can. And then let us know if you have any specific questions on anything, but nothing else. Thank you.
Any questions for her? Okay, not seeing any. Move on to legislative report. Emily and Jamie, whichever wants to go first.
I can jump in. This is Emily. Sorry that I'm not on camera.
Yep.
Jumping around a bunch this morning. So yes, as mentioned earlier, the TPR bill was up in committee last week. We did see that get postponed indefinitely. CDOT took a neutral position on the bill. I was present for questions only. We heard mostly testimony from Eastern TPR and some of our South Central partners, I believe, and then also some members from DRCOG. The sense we got from the committee is that ultimately they didn't want to move forward with the bill just because of concerns with proportional allocation of votes on STAC and potentially adding another voice on STAC. And so I'm probably not representing exactly what they were saying too. There was a lot of different back and forth and a lot of different voices on the committee. But I really appreciated Rep. Richardson's portrayal of the TPR study and all of the different voices at the table. And I think it was a very interesting committee hearing. And so he, of course, is very well versed in TPRs. I know some of you know him well, and that was a really interesting committee hearing. So I'm happy to send the link to anyone that wants to listen in to that recording. Other than that, we have our figure setting today with the JBC. So budget continues to be kind of the main theme of the session. And I'm also happy to send out our updated budget proposal. I don't know if we have on the agenda another budget update later. We did include a revamped budget proposal in the governor's January 31st budget letter to the JBC, and we were able to propose reducing the original round of cuts a little bit, which I think will help kind of feel a little less hurt on those cuts moving forward. So we're really hoping that the JBC adopts the new proposal today. We also proposed having the reduction to the faster fee be a 2-year pause versus a permanent reduction. If you remember, the original proposal had basically outlined a plan for reducing registration fees by the equivalent of about 65 million, and then changing the allocation of faster fees so that locals would be held harmless and the majority of those impacts would be put on CDOT. So we have now proposed lessening that cut and also pausing it or resuming the full amount of registration fees after 2 years. So I think it'll be very interesting today with the JBC to hear their discussion, kind of where they land on our various proposals. We also, after a lot of discussion with stakeholders, will not be pursuing the diesel fee this year. Just now that we have a smaller budget proposal and also just with the different dynamics this year in the legislature, it just didn't seem like the right year to pursue that particular bill. So that's no longer something that's on the table for this coming year. you guys might have seen, I know Aaron included in the STAC packet a larger outline of CDOT's positions on a lot of different bills that we're tracking. There's a lot of motor vehicle administration bills, this kind of general safety bills that we're keeping an eye on. Not a lot that we've weighed in on yet. Next week, we will support SB 069, which is related to chain assist programs. And that's something that we've been hearing from the commercial trucking industry for a while, that they really would like CDOT to initiate a chain assist program, which we did do several years ago as a pilot. This bill is a really cool solution that I think kind of meets middle ground without starting a very large program at CDOT, but also kind of allowing the private industry to fill in gaps and allow for them to provide chain assistance activities. So essentially, CDOT would be enabled to start a permit program, and private businesses could apply for that permit to set up at CDOT chain up stations or chain down stations, or potentially a rest area or two in the event of inclement weather, and basically charge to chain people up and keep people safe on the road. So we'll be supporting that one next week, and I think that's a really cool concept. We also have seen a few messaging bills introduced that we don't expect to go forward, but a lot of them are related to the various transportation fees that were enacted through SB 260 or some other bills from the past few years. So there is one bill in the House that's been introduced that is proposed to repeal the retail delivery fee. And then there's another bill in the Senate that's been introduced that proposes to repeal the rideshare fee, the rental car fee that was created in Faster, a few other of the 260 fees. And so we don't expect those ones to move forward. Those fees are very supported in this legislature, but we'll be engaging on those, and probably have some different questions from committee about, what is the average impact of these fees on the average Coloradan, and we'll be prepared to testify around those questions. So happy to answer any other questions on things that have come up, but that's what I'm tracking this week.
Okay. Any questions or comments on the legislation items?
Mr. Chair, I could one minor comment in terms of the budget. Once the final budget goes forward to the TC, we will have a presentation for STAC for their recommendation as well. We expect that in either March or April.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions, comments on legislative? Okay, if not, we'll go on to Jamie for a federal update.
Good morning, everybody. Just wanted to wish everybody a happy National Pay a Compliment Day. So I just want to say, I think it's really amazing that you guys care about your communities enough that you've agreed to join STAC and come to a 3 to 4 hour meeting once a month that I know we all think is fascinating for 3 solid hours, but can get a little dry. So I think it's amazing that you guys show up every month. So please pass along a compliment to someone today. So I'm sure you guys have heard it's been a busy couple of weeks in DC. We've been getting a lot of administration direction. President Trump was inaugurated on January 20th, and then shortly after that, he signed a slew of executive orders. There was an executive order relating to energy and EVs that was written in a way that potentially shut down DOT formula funding. That was fixed a couple hours later, so we were able to dodge that bullet, but there was a little bit of confusion. And then the next week, there was a memo that went out asking agencies to review all federal aid funding that their agency distributes, which also caused some confusion, but that has been temporarily halted by a judge until mid-March, as Bill said. So we're waiting to see what kind of impact that will have on CDOT. At the moment, as I'm reiterating a lot of what Bill said, because so many of these changes have been administrative rather than legislative. So at the moment, we're waiting for more direction on what will happen, what types of grants could potentially be impacted. We anticipate there will be impacts on EV grant funding, but at the moment, funding for grants that are active and have grant agreements under construction, they are moving forward. It's the newer grants that we maybe have gotten in the past year that don't have agreements quite yet that we're seeing a pause on. So if you have specific project requests, feel free to reach out to me or your region, and we can follow up with FHWA to see what the status is. We have a new transportation secretary. If you are Gen Z or millennial, you'll remember him from the Real World Boston, and may have had a crush on him as a lumberjack. I'm just saying. Sean Duffy was confirmed as the newest transportation secretary. He has issued some guidance regarding how he wants to see discretionary grant funding directed. And we are also waiting to see, a lot has happened very quickly. And so a lot of this is we're waiting to see as we get more guidance. So let me know if you have any questions. And then lastly, go Eagles.
Okay. Any questions for Jamie or any issues want to be brought forward? Yeah, Kristen.
Yeah, thank you. Sorry, I couldn't find my hand.
Yeah, well, that's fine. If I catch the eye.
So Jamie, for those of us who do have something that's in, the hopper in the past year that maybe doesn't have an agreement, do we have any timeline on to when we would maybe know about the status of those projects?
I'm going to direct it to Bill. My understanding is it's a 30-day freeze, but FHWA is probably the better entity to answer that.
Yeah, at this
I don't know if he's still on. Oh, there he is.
I am. At this point, we don't know. I would hope that we would get some notifications sooner rather than later, just as kind of a courtesy for everyone, whether you can move forward or not. So, but yeah, I don't really have any better information. So we're still waiting too. As soon as we do know, we will definitely share that.
I appreciate that. Yeah, we have a raise grant that we, got recent notice of, and we're pretty excited about it. But now we don't know if we can be excited about it. So, yeah, as soon as you all hear something, and do we know if people are in place in the, we're taking a trip to DC at the end of the month. Do we know if there's like people in place in DOT that are from the administration that we could potentially talk to, or I don't know if anybody has any connections?
Some, obviously, we are very glad that we have a US DOT secretary. That's a big start. Within FHWA, we don't have an FHWA administrator, so we have acting administrators and deputy administrators. So our executive director, Gloria Shepard, is the Federal Highway acting administrator right now. So it'll take time to fill those positions, but this is that kind of a normal event during the transition. And the key thing is for some of the US DOT Office of the Secretary positions to be filled then we'll start getting information, I think, and decisions made. So hopefully that happens fairly soon. So, and I think there was an announcement, I haven't had a chance to look at it, but I think there was an announcement that came out today that the secretary is filling some of those positions. So
great, thank you. Yeah, I know it's kind of a wait and see, and it's just a change of administration that happens. Thank you.
Anything else? Wanted to share one thing I saw in a newsletter from Ports to Plains, which is the coalition of states from Texas, well, from Mexico to Canada, through Eastern Colorado. But they had a history on how federal highways were kind of started, and it actually started in the Postal Act way back for the postal routes. So it was very interesting to see a little bit of the history of how actually our federal highway, our federal transportation system, and why it was actually started. It was to connect communities for postal service. And it started out in like our Highway 40, Highway 24 in Colorado. Those were the ones that were kind of the main first corridors through the state, primarily to get mail service through on the old Pony Expresses and stuff. So, and then it changed when rail came in and things. So it was really interesting to see what started all this and the importance of connecting our communities. So, thank you. We're
Chair,
done with that. Yeah, go
I
ahead.
just have I want to go back to the TPR study and check. Brian Pettit had asked if we were going to be talking a little bit more about this TPR study, and I think Emily did that, but I just want to make sure that he feels like that's covered, or if there's anything else he wanted to talk about.
No, I'm good. I just wanted to make sure what I was hearing was accurate. And so, yeah, I'm
all right.
But I imagine there is no timeline or plan to get back to the TC, because I would assume that would be the next step then.
Yeah, I'll chat with the chair and vice chair. I don't think there's an appetite to create a new TPR and combine the others down in Southeast and South Central. So I don't think there will be a commission action forthcoming. I think this probably ends it, at least for this this planning cycle.
Okay, thank you. That's additional information that's important.
Yep, you bet.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anything else for legislative issues? Okay, not seeing any. Again, we're running early, so I think we're just gonna power on through and go on into our Transportation Vision 2035 presentation. Darius.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This presentation is going to be a joint presentation. I'll kick it off and then I'll turn it over to one of our senior planners in the department, Nathan Lindquist, and Aaron is bringing up the presentation now. So this was something that the administration had put out a couple of months ago and wanted to give a high-level overview, and I think we have a copy of the document in the STAC packet. If you like that copy, feel free to, if you don't have a copy, feel free to let us know. We're happy to send that out again. But we just wanted to preview this to see what the message from this vision is. It doesn't have any, it does have some potential long-range targets for various items. It doesn't have any specifics in regards to projects or directives that will come out of it, but it does create a opportunity for collaboration in order to achieve joint goals and for transportation statewide. So let's go to the next slide. Overall, when this was introduced in November of 2024, taking a look at transportation, the couple of items that were goals that we're trying to achieve is reduce pollution, advance affordability, improve quality of life, and increase options for transit, walking, and biking. So increase other options that folks can use to get around the state and use their mode of choice. Let's go to the next slide, please. At a very high level overview, it's recognizing that the state itself can't reach the state's goals on our own, and encouraging local, regional, and federal collaboration when possible, and trying to work together in order to achieve these goals throughout all of our communities throughout the state. The vision does align with what the Transportation Commission had passed with PD 14 in many ways. But it doesn't add anything specific or additional tasks for CDOT. But it is something to take a look at as we try to create this collaborative vision for transportation in the future. So, and with that, Nathan, I believe I'm going to turn it over to you to kind of go through some of the details within this.
Yeah, hi everybody. Good morning. Nathan Lindquist, Senior Land Use Planner in TTD. Just next slide, Aaron. So just at a high level, and again, this goes back to Darius's point about overall generally similar to PD 14. The goals are improving air quality, public health, reducing GHG emissions and regional air pollution, saving people money through affordable and reliable transportation options, fixing our roads, and ensuring safe travel through all kinds of different travel options, including driving, walking, biking, and transit. Next slide. And then continuing on with kind of the high level, looking at how to improve access to jobs and services for all Coloradans, including those who don't drive or prefer not to drive, which are a lot of different groups in our society. Reducing congestion on the roads, improving driver safety, expanding opportunities for physical activity, access to public places in the great outdoors, and then addressing transportation inequities for low-income residents and rural and urban communities alike. Next slide. So then the vision lays out basically 3 high-level methods and strategies. So expanding transit service, the first one, implementing policies to encourage compact land use in walkable communities, to reduce the number and distance of vehicle trips, and then increasing travel choices around bike and ped infrastructure, micromobility services that assist with first and last mile connections to transit facilities. Next slide. And so then it just sets some high level goals for the state. And again, as Darius was saying, these really aren't goals for CDOT. One of the things we worked with the governor's office on was just to make the transit goal aligned with the PD14 goal, just so that alignment was there and there weren't 2 numbers floating around out there. And then the rest of these numbers were really based on analysis that was done using some of the work that had gone into the greenhouse gas rule and the analysis then, and kind of trying to extrapolate that to the purposes of this document. So an 81% increase in bicycle infrastructure statewide, 3.4% statewide increase in sidewalks, and then a goal for 52% of new housing units to be in transit-oriented areas and 77% within existing census urban areas. The transportation demand management efforts weren't able to be quantified just because there's not as much data on that at this kind of higher level of analysis. So it's important to leave vision, but not quantified as a goal. So again, these are really just looked at as not a CDOT goal, not something that the vision says CDOT needs to do X, Y, and Z to try and achieve 81% increase in bicycle infrastructure. It's really just a vision and kind of saying, you know, all of these different entities, the more everybody can work together towards this vision, it's got all of the previous benefits. Next slide. So I think that's it. And within this, there's a link you can get to the document.
So we're Mr. Chair, we're happy to take any questions. We knew it was a kind of a very short and high level presentation. It's designed to kind of pare it down a bit, but there's more information within the document, but we're happy to answer any questions that members of the staff may have.
Hey, any questions? Kristen?
Yeah, so I'm assuming that the bill that's in at the legislature that is talking about mode plans and increasing modes, and the money from SB 24-230 is a big piece of making this happen. Is that correct?
The money from the mode choice bill is still something in the works. I think that's one of the pieces that's coming forward, that's taking a look at how this can be expanded a little bit. I think it's kind of hard to say where the two are connected, but you can definitely see the linkages between them in order from that. And then the 230 money that came, I believe that's the oil and gas fee one, that is going to the Clean Transit Enterprise, and that is specifically for development of transit services throughout the state. So definitely a lot of these would contribute to the Vision 2035.
Thanks. It's kind of why I wanted to see the notes on the from the transit, which thank you for whoever popped those in the messages. But in looking over those really quickly, it looked like there would be competitive dollars and some formulaic dollars that would be getting that money out to different communities. Is that right?
Yeah, I
Okay.
believe that is correct. And I think the enterprise is determining those formulas and those competitive programs for communities statewide.
And that's all through Clean Fleet, is that what you said?
Clean Transit Enterprise.
Clean Transit. Okay, sorry. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, Commissioner Ross.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm just going to express a comment and a sentiment that I've heard from members of the Upper Front Range TPR. I think the picture you have right here for Vision 2035 probably encapsulates what our concerns are. There's no mention of regular car transportation, truck transportation. I realize the governor has a vision that everyone can ride a train or a bus or multimodal. In rural Colorado, it's not a reality. And although there are some options for things like bus staying, which is extremely expensive for the state to continue operating, for most communities out here, it's not a legitimate way for folks to get back and forth to work or to school. And I guess I'm just disappointed because this Vision 2035, although it says state of Colorado, feels to me like it's Front Range centric and has really forgotten about the rural parts of the state, which is a vast majority of the state. And so just want to say I'm a little disappointed. Sorry.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Yeah, Brian. We can't hear you. You're on mute.
Sorry about that.
Right.
I would echo what Commissioner Ross says. Thanks for stating that. Rural Colorado has different needs for sure. One thing that stuck out for me was 3.4% statewide increase in sidewalks. I'm curious as to how you get 3.4% on that. But I know this is a vision, but I'm wondering if there's going to be dollars attached to this and grants available for that type of thing, obviously. I'm asking because Town of Fraser is going to be putting in sidewalks this year.
It's an excellent question. I don't think there's any money attached specifically with this, but there are potential programs out there that can help. We always have the TAP program, and as we are developing our transportation programs and long range transportation plan, those are potential other areas in order to take a look at it. But I don't think there was any money to attach to this. I don't think it was a project specific plan. It was like taking a look at an overall vision for the state in terms of transportation. But appreciate the comments in regards to some of the concerns in the rural areas. And that's one of the when we do our transportation planning, that's one of the things we're taking in consideration while we do the regional transportation plans, is take a look at those region specific issues in order to help focus in on what our statewide plan is going to look like and what our transportation plan is going to look like.
If I could add to, most of my career spent out working in the city of Rifle on the West Slope, and certainly understand the comments about not feeling like the rural regions are in this document. I think from CDOT's perspective, the more, where most of the growth of the state's happening is in the Front Range and then a couple of the other rural corridors. And the more in those areas that transit and land use can be looked at in a way that's making more efficient land use patterns, you kind of get that positive synergy going. That can over time decrease the need to have to take on expensive new highway infrastructure. And we know so much of our highway infrastructure is 40, 60, 80 years old, and we need to fix our roads, but that gets harder to do when you kind of have this inefficient land use pattern and lack of people to have the other options. So I think there's a decent argument for that working on this in the fast growing parts of the state does help the rest of the rural parts of the state as far as asset maintenance as things continue to age. So not that I think that will automatically make all of the rural parts of the state love this vision, but I think important to keep in mind from CDOT's perspective, this can be beneficial to CDOT's basic fiscal sustainability.
Well, and just to add, I mean, obviously, town of Fraser, town of Winter Park, we're getting a huge benefit with the focus on mountain rail in this corridor. But yeah, there are a lot of places in the state that don't have rail lines, and so yeah, I feel for them.
Hey, John.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. And again, I think this might be a question that's just specific to me, so I beg everyone's indulgence for a quick second. Nathan, I don't know if this is a question for you or I think I saw Kay on here, might be a question for her. We're trying to put together a request to do a study here on, and you touched on it briefly, Darius, travel reduction program, right? I mean, in Denver, you guys you have the transportation demand associations and stuff. We don't have that maybe around the whole state, or at least not here in Colorado Springs. So we're trying to put together some sort of grant request to do a study to see, hey, how do we implement these things? How do we better align ourselves with some of these things? But obviously it takes funding. So my question is, we've sort of danced around it, but is there in fact funding that would be available? And is there a set application deadline, or once we get everything typed up, we can just send it over to either you, Nathan, or Kay, and you guys can kind of direct us to what pot of money is the best?
Kay, I think you may have an answer.
Yeah, appreciate that question. And yes, we do have some grants in innovative mobility that help with exactly that. We have a TMO seed funding grant that is aimed at exactly what you said. If there's an interest in forming a TMO type organization in a particular area, we have funding that will support you to stand that up over the course of 2 years. And then once you are a TMO, once you have a TMO, we have grant funding that would help you kind of perform your work, and that's an annual grant program. So yeah, happy to have my staff contact you and kind of walk you through what that looks like. But we've seed funded, I believe, 3 TMOs in different areas across the state since this program started to get at exactly that issue right. There's a ton of support for multimodal and mode shift in the metro areas. But there's not so much in the rural areas, but TDM is not solely an urban strategy. So
yeah, and I appreciate that, Kay. So yeah, someone can contact me. Again, we're looking to start with the study because we have to get that sort of political buy-in, especially with the philosophies that are in Colorado Springs. But that being said, there are folks that want to be able to bike to work. They want to carpool. And they want to have some sort of guaranteed ride home. All of those things package up nicely under a TDM a strategy that can be serviced by a TMO. And again, I think we need that study chunk of money first, and then the seed money in that. So would love to have a chat with somebody there so we can start making this happen. So thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Hey, Ron, you're up next.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thanks for the update on this. Darius, I think I have a bit of a question about, and I haven't fully read the whole vision document, but what's the baseline year from which and maybe Nathan can answer this, what's the baseline year from which the percentage increase is and the goals is set from? That's my first question.
It was 2024. So basically what a lot of it was developed on was like the that cost benefit analysis that was done through the greenhouse gas report, or when the rule was done. So it was kind of extrapolating those numbers from a 2024 to 2035 period.
Okay, and then can you provide to us any information on what a percentage increase translates to? So a 3.4% increase statewide in sidewalks, like how many miles of sidewalks would that represent? So we could figure out how many sidewalks would have to be constructed per year to achieve that goal by 2035. Same for bike infrastructure. And then on the transit revenue miles, just to share with everyone, that's an 83% increase in 10 years is pretty significant. And I don't know about the other transit agencies around the state, but my understanding from RTD is that just for our region, that would be somewhere on the order of $450 to $500 million a year of new revenue beyond what they already have to the cost to increase operations to just for their district.
Yeah, to your first question, the more specific numbers are in the appendix when we get to the mileage of sidewalks and mileage of other things.
Okay.
And to your kind of second question or point, I think they all realized this was extremely ambitious goals, setting high level vision goals that would take, any number of partners to fully embrace and sign on to, even have an opportunity to reach it. But I don't think there was a, misunderstanding on their part of these were very ambitious and aggressive goals.
Okay, and thanks, Nathan. I appreciate that. And just, I think my final point is, I think now that this is out, we are seeing it starting to be referenced in legislation, either draft bills or actual bills coming in the legislative session and sort of requiring alignment with sort of these goals. And so I just want to reiterate, it's a challenge to require alignment with these goals when these goals are going to would cost a ton of money that doesn't exist to implement. So I'm trying to reconcile those two things. I appreciate setting out goals and aspirations, and we should all be striving to do this. And the outcomes, certainly the desired outcomes, align with Denver region outcomes that we've established in our own regional plan and MetroVision and our regional transportation plan. But as the state legislature starts to kind of grab onto this and says, hey, we'll align your plans to do this, but we don't have the resources to implement it, there starts to be more of a disconnect. So just struggling with how to reconcile those things.
I think it's a fair point.
John.
Yeah, and just to follow on what Ron said, and I don't know if Ron, the number you threw out included the required paratransit service, but again, with the federal, whenever you increase a route, that increases the 3/4 mile requirement for paratransit. So there's an additional fee on top of just providing the service. There's that extra service as well. So it is really kind of a huge cost, because again, we've been sort of struggling with wanting to provide more service, but again, the funding isn't there. So that's the other sort of disconnect is there's an assumption that we don't want to have more transit service. We do. We just don't have the funds for it, especially when you look at all the federal requirements of having to have the paratransit service and these other things. So it's a great goal. I think we all us urban areas sort of embrace that goal because we all want to do more transit, but it's not just as simple as saying, hey, let's do it. There are some real prohibitive costs associated with it. So just wanted to sort of tail on to what Ron is saying. And if, again, we could have more resources, I think you would see us be able to do more stuff. But if we do what we can with what we have.
Yeah, I think a little bit it was, there was just interest from a lot of parties in having goals to try and work in the state legislature and other places to find more resources. But I get to Ron's point, then the numbers get attached.
But we do appreciate the comments from everybody on and trying to talk these out and I think there is an overall vision that's set within the document. There are some targets in there, and appreciate the comments on some of the difficulties on how to help achieve that vision. But I think the overall message of working together to achieve a transportation vision that is multimodal is probably the key point from the vision document.
Any other people wanting to comment? I'd like to just comment your reference that mode shift will help rural areas improve their roads. As some of the first things that came up, well, how are you going to help us pay for sidewalks? How are you going to help us put in bike lanes? When we have these big goals that you admit are overly lofty, even the governor's goals of more condensed communities and higher densities. I'm watching what's going on West Colfax in Denver. Just the infrastructure upgrades that are required to have denser housing, your sewer, water, drainage, electricity that has to get into those places to have higher densities are huge cost to communities that make it hard to reach those goals that are being pushed and being written into legislation. And that's the concern with these over lofty goals that you admit are overly aggressive. When we have those out there and being promoted by CDOT, it gets difficult to see how we're going to actually improve our roads when we're saying we're going to encourage all these other things, and then everybody comes in. Well, how are you going to help us do all these things? And then legislation writes things to help with that, which does not help the rural areas maintain the roads, or even in the metro area. Our state highways statewide are struggling. So I would be cautious on overly promoting this. The economic impact to rural areas, if our roads aren't maintained, we continue to lose our economic competitive ability to recruit people to live in our communities and maintain the businesses. So it's important economically for all of the state, not just the urban corridors that have the high economic activity, but for the rest of us to survive and keep our economic viabilities, to have good roadways. And these goals, it mentions system quality and preservation, but it doesn't highlight anything about how to get there or what to do to maintain the system. It just talks about adding all these things that people are going to expect to be built and partially funded by the state. You say it's working with partners, but it's not highlighted that sidewalks, bike paths, those things are primarily the responsibility of the local communities. So these sorts of things would be really good to have the governor work with groups like the STAC when writing these sorts of goals, so we can write goals that are at least reasonably reachable, or trying to reach to even be slightly high, but to be some of these 81%, like the transit, that's a huge expense. It'd take all of CDOT's budget to try to reach that goal. So it's just concerning when we have goals that are overreaching and then it's being referenced and put into legislation that is probably not reachable. So without funding, especially, and we see what the budget's doing right now. So it's just concerning. And if there's a way to relay those things when we're writing new visions from the state level, to include more people than just the people that have been writing these in the future. Thank you. Any other comments? All right. We'll move on to our statewide plan update. Marissa.
I'm actually going to turn this over to Aaron Willis for the presentation this month.
Thank you, Marissa. Can everybody hear me okay? All right, and yeah, thank you, Chair Beatty. So really happy to be able to present a little bit more on the public involvement piece of the as we're developing the 2050 statewide transportation plan. So as a refresher, we are right at the almost the middle of the development of the 2050 statewide transportation plan. We've had quite a bit of robust conversations with our rural planning partners, 1, 2, and in a lot of cases 3 meetings that reviewed their goals, focus areas, and getting to a place where a lot of TPRs are honing in on the next set of project priorities for their regional plans. And so everything we've done up until this point has been open and available to the public and our stakeholders via our website, via the meetings that we've had. And now it's time to expand upon some of that at a really good point where our public and the stakeholders are able to weigh in on some of these key items that will eventually find their way into each one of the regional plans and, of course, the next 2050 statewide plan. And so we're gearing up to implement 2 large public engagement strategies in order to make sure we hear from all voices throughout the state. One is the commissioner-led telephone town halls. And for those of you who are not familiar, we're looking at approximately 9 telephone town halls that would loosely be developed and cover the areas of our Colorado Transportation Commissioner districts. And as a refresher, these telephone town halls, they feel a lot like a radio call-in show where the public can enter a queue, be able to speak directly, ask questions directly of transportation commissioners and RTDs and CDOT staff on transportation issues that are important to them in their area. The town halls also have a polling component, being able to answer questions, and then we're able to summarize all of those in a nice report that we're able to use later as we move throughout our planning process. And so this technology, if for those of you who have been around a while, this is at least the 3rd time we've done town halls, teletown halls as a part of the planning process, and the technology has gotten a lot better. So now features include the ability to not only call just landlines, we're able to also call mobile phones through an opt-in process. There's the possibility of having a video simulcast. We will be standing up once we get these going, stand up a registration page where folks can distribute the link and make sure we get a wide range of participation. And then there's also Spanish language interpretation and simulcasting available. And so just again, as reference, our commission is still that commission district map for reference. And so by implementing these town halls, we hope to make sure that we're including and allowing the traveling public to be able to ask questions, obtain answers from Colorado Transportation Commissions, making sure everybody has a voice in all parts of the state in the planning process, and be able to have folks directly provide input on things that we need to be thinking about and considering in the 2050 statewide and regional planning process. So also closely linked to the planning, to the telephone town halls is our next sort of big major transportation survey. So we're gearing up for that. That is in sort of a final round of draft edits. And so this large statewide survey will be another one of our main methods where we obtain the thoughts and opinions of folks statewide. And our questions and the structure of the survey really fits and is closely aligned with the Policy Directive 14 themes of advancing transportation safety, fixing our roads and sustainably increasing transportation choice. And so we're putting the final touches on that, and hopefully looking to distribute that in within the next month or so. Lastly, I'd like to also add that the questions also include a hypothetical budget that folks can allocate various resources to various transportation options. So we're leaning definitely on the more condensed and short and sweet approach with that statewide transportation survey. And then hopefully once we're able to calculate, get that distributed and have that open, we'll be able to share responses with members of STAC and the commission.
Do you have a way to share that survey now with STAC so we can see what's on the survey?
If you would, yeah, if you would like a preview, we can absolutely provide that.
Yeah, once we have the final version approved on our end, we're happy to preview that with STAC before it goes out.
Yeah.
Because how that's structured is very important to be able to get accurate community feedback. Some of the rail ones I saw were very leading in how do you answer questions. You couldn't differentiate between different types of transit or where services you thought would be useful. So it's important how that's worded and how it's put together if you're going to get good information representing what the people think. So
absolutely, Mr. Chair. I think we were able to send that out as soon as we have we finished our final edits. We can give a preview to STAC members in order to provide feedback before we put it live.
So just as a final step and next steps as we're sort of putting the final touches on the survey, also like to make the offer to STAC members if they're interested in participating in the coming telephone town halls. You can reach out to me, and we can include you in that, include you in those events.
okay, any other, or Darius, you have other comments?
Just one final comment. I think that the timeline may be a little bit more, what's the best way to put it? Manageable. We're trying to work internally with getting our support on board. So I think the late February probably is a little bit ambitious. It probably be a little bit later than that. And we also want to avoid having to, the spring break in order to get the maximum amount of participation in the survey and the telephone town halls. So it may be a little bit later in the spring, depending on when we have everything on our end ready to go. But we will keep the STAC informed and have a presentation on that as well. So even though it said late February, I think that's probably a little bit optimistic on our time end, and maybe a little bit later in the late spring, April timeframe, I think is probably a more realistic. And the survey and the telephone town halls will be concurrent. And as I had said before, Mr. Chair, we're happy to send out a final draft version of the survey for comment before we send it out.
But when you say it's a final draft, that's still a bit able to be amended, or?
Oh, yes.
Okay, so
yes,
I just want to make sure that we actually have time that we can actually give recommendations on what we'd like to see to help guide our decisions in TPRs and things. So I think that's an important survey for the TPRs to see, and then to have questions on there that TPRs would like to have answered. So.
Yeah, and that's why I mentioned the timeline thing, so it didn't seem like that we didn't have enough time in order to get that feedback.
Okay, thank you. Ron.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thanks, Darius. Appreciate the update on this. I think we had mentioned to CDOT that as part of the development of our 2050 regional transportation plan this year and next, we'd been considering doing some sort of survey work as well. within the DRCOG region. We would love the opportunity to discuss more with you all about partnering on something like that. I understand that CDOT survey work is not intended to be a random sample survey, so it's sort of an opt-in. Whoever fills it out, fills it out. And so, that comes with some limitations in terms of its usefulness, but it still provides really valuable information to help us through our planning processes. So even with that limitation, we'd still welcome the opportunity to have some conversation about how we might be able to partner to kind of kill two birds with one stone, if you will, and expand maybe the use of the CDOT survey in combination with DRCOG in the Denver region.
Absolutely, and the offer goes out to all of our MPO partners as well.
Hey, Kristen.
Yeah, and part of what Ron said kind of answered my question. I had to step out for a second, but it's not a statistically valid survey. So how do you make sure that you're hearing from some voices that you might not normally hear from?
Yeah, that'll be part of the distribution process and also part of the assistance that we'll ask our planning partners to help us with distribution to make sure that we're getting coverage and hearing from every voice. The demographic section in our current draft is pretty robust. We've got a number of ways people can identify their location as, zip code, county, those kind of things that then we can track as we're going through and looking at results, and then seeing where we might have holes, work with locals to further distribution of the areas. This is some information.
Yeah, I think especially in rural areas and smaller communities, it might be, it'd be just great to have that full picture, right? And so yeah, however you can achieve that. And I think this group probably can help with that distribution, certainly. But yeah, I would like to get that full picture versus kind of just an urban look or Denver centric or whatever kind of. Thank you.
And I would add that, and that's why we had brought up this preview now, is to get some of this feedback. So the feedback from you, Mr. Chair, from you, Ron, and Commissioner Stevens, in order so we can have those conversations early before we go out, knowing that we're kind of getting into the home stretch of this here, and we're starting to put those plans together. And want to make sure that everybody who needs to be involved, wants to be involved, is involved, and that we're able to get the full picture and be able to get that out to the widest audience possible. And make sure that we're asking the right things, of course.
Thank you. I think those town halls are great. I think they do reach a lot of people that don't normally get involved. So I've participated in some in the past, and they were very interesting and good to participate in. So glad we're doing those again. Any other questions or comments on our statewide plan and updates? Okay. Not seeing any other business or topics anybody wants to bring up before we adjourn? We will be having the TPR administrators meeting immediately following this, so they can meet with Darius.
Excuse me, Mr. Chair, I think the TPR administrator meeting is scheduled for 1 o'clock.
Oh, okay. So it said on here immediately following. So, okay.
We were so
at 1 o'clock.
We were so efficient, Mr. Chair, we had extra time.
Yeah. Okay. So if there's nothing else, I'll see you in a month on our next, and we are Zoom next month, correct? So we'll see you all next month. Thank you.